Eli floated in the blackness of space, the blue glow around his body flickering like a tiny star against the endless dark. In front of him, the Devourer stretched across the sky, a dark mass of shadow and energy, more terrifying than anything he had ever seen. The Devourer's thought echoed in his mind again, but this time it was stronger, more forceful. You are nothing. I am everything. You cannot stop me. Eli didn't respond with words. There was no time for talk. He felt the energy inside him, power that pulsed through his veins, power that had come from a place far beyond his understanding. But this was different. This wasn't about fighting with weapons or strength. It was about survival. He raised his arms slowly, feeling the surge of energy grow stronger. His blue light brightened, lighting up the surrounding space like a beacon. He could feel the weight of the Devourer's presence pushing against him, as if it was trying to crush him under the force of its darkness. But Eli didn't back down. He wouldn't back down. The Devourer's shadow seemed to reach out, swallowing the stars around it. The universe itself felt like it was bending under the weight of its power. Eli could feel the immense force pulling at him, trying to rip him apart. You are weak, the Devourer thought again, a cold, cruel whisper in his mind. No, Eli whispered to himself, I am the last spark. With a roar that filled the silence of space, Eli unleashed his power. A wave of blue energy exploded from him, so bright that the darkness around him seemed to shrink away. The Devourer screeched, a sound that wasn't made with a voice, but with sheer force. The stars blinked, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Eli's body began to shimmer with the intensity of his energy. The blue light turned almost blinding, a light that was the opposite of the shadow that surrounded the Devourer. It wasn't just light, it was life, hope, will. It was everything that the Devourer sought to destroy. The Devourer's shadow began to twist, its form shifting and stretching as though it was trying to escape the light. But Eli was not giving up. He pushed harder. The stars around them brightened as his energy expanded, pushing against the crushing blackness of the Devourer. Eli's entire body felt like it was burning with energy, like every cell was filled with pure fire. It was painful, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Suddenly, the Devourer lunged forward, its mass of shadow and energy swirling toward Eli like a massive wave. It felt like the end. It felt like nothing could stop it. But Eli didn't flinch. He held his ground. And then, with one final push, the energy inside him exploded outward. A blinding burst of blue light tore through the blackness, pushing back the Devourer's shadow, forcing it to shrink. Eli's body shook with the effort, but he refused to let go. His arms stretched forward, the blue light engulfing everything in its path. The Devourer screamed, but it wasn't the voice of a monster. It was the sound of something fighting for its life, something realizing that the darkness it had spread across the stars had met its match. No, the Devourer screamed in Eli's mind. You are nothing. I'm not nothing, Eli whispered. I'm the last spark. I am what comes after the darkness. The light around Eli flared brighter. The universe itself seemed to respond, as if the very fabric of existence was rallying behind him. The Devourer's form began to crack, its shadow shuddering, its massive, cold power faltering. For a moment, there was silence. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, the Devourer disintegrated. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a fight. It was gone. The darkness unraveled like a broken thread, scattered into nothingness. Eli collapsed, his body flickering, the light around him dimming as he floated in the empty space. His heart pounded in his chest, his energy almost drained. For a moment, he thought he might fall into the void alone. But then, he felt something, a presence. It wasn't the Devourer. It was the ancients. They surrounded him now, a circle of glowing figures, their light softer than his own, but still filled with power. One of the ancients stepped forward. You have done it. You have stopped the darkness. Eli could barely speak, his voice weak. I did it. Skarn's legs burned as he ran. The hallways of the outpost seemed to stretch forever. The blast from the reactor had shaken everything. The lights flickered, the walls cracked, and the very floor seemed to pulse beneath his feet. Behind him, the screams of Ward echoed through the station, rising and falling like a distant storm. The force of the explosion had done something to Ward. He was no longer just a threat. He was a force of destruction. But Skarn couldn't stop now. The countdown clock on the reactor was ticking away, and every second mattered. Skarn reached the last airlock. He could see the escape shuttle on the other side, its hatch just a few meters away. His pulse raced. He had to make it. He had to get out. But as he pressed his hand to the airlock control panel, a voice cut through the chaos. "You think you've won." Ward's voice was everywhere now, coming from the walls, the floor, the air itself. He was everywhere. Skarn turned, his blaster aimed and ready. But Ward wasn't there. The voice continued. "I am the outpost now. You can't run from me." The door to the shuttle flickered. The countdown continued. Skarn looked at the airlock's countdown. 30 seconds. If he didn't leave now, he'd never escape. But as his fingers hovered over the control panel, doubt crept into his mind. Ward was out there, still alive, still hunting him. But if Skarn left, Ward would escape too. The entire galaxy would be in danger. Skarn had only one choice. He turned away from the shuttle. "Skarn, no." The voice of Ward laughed from the walls. "You can't fight me anymore. I'm beyond your reach." Skarn gritted his teeth. He didn't care anymore. He wasn't going to let Ward roam free. The countdown to the reactor's destruction was at 10 seconds. He ran down the hallway, faster than before. The station was shaking violently now, the walls buckling, the ceiling cracking. It was falling apart. But Skarn didn't stop. He didn't look back. He knew what he had to do. He reached the reactor chamber. The walls were covered in cracks, and smoke poured from every crack. The entire room was lit by the glow of the unstable core. Ward's voice echoed around him, now distant and full of anger. "You think you can stop me? You think I'm just some human project? You're wrong. I am a new kind of power." Skarn didn't listen. He moved to the control panel and punched in the override codes. The core roared louder, the countdown faster. Ward's figure appeared in front of him, his body distorted, like he was no longer a man but a nightmare made real. "You're too late," Ward shouted. "You can't destroy me." Skarn turned toward him. "No, but I can stop you from escaping. I can lock you in." Ward's glowing eyes burned brighter. "I will destroy you. I will make you suffer." Skarn didn't flinch. He pressed the final button. The reactor core exploded with a violent flash. The walls cracked. The station shook as the power surged, tearing through everything in its path. Ward screamed, his voice raw, full of rage and fear. But even as he howled, the blast consumed him. His figure flickered, as if struggling to hold itself together, before it was swallowed by the explosion. Skarn fell to the ground, the blast knocking him off his feet. He couldn't see. He couldn't hear. The world was chaos. But then, the shaking stopped. The screaming stopped. The lights flickered one last time, and then went dark. For a long moment, Skarn lay still, his body aching, his mind spinning. Had it worked? Was it over? Slowly, he opened his eyes. The reactor room was a disaster. Fires burned in the corners. The walls were collapsing, but it was quiet. Ward was gone. Skarn struggled to his feet, leaning against the broken wall for support. He glanced at the control panel. The countdown had stopped. It was over. Skarn took a deep breath. The silence felt strange now, peaceful, but with the weight of everything that had happened. He had stopped the monster. He had stopped Ward. But the cost would haunt him. With the last of his strength, Skarn made his way back to the airlock. He had a shuttle to catch. The station was falling apart around him. The universe didn't know what had happened here, and Skarn wasn't sure if they ever should. As the airlock doors slid open, Skarn stepped into the shuttle. He sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the shattered station on the screen. The universe was safe for now. But what Ward had become, what Skarn had seen, it was a warning. One Skarn would never forget. And as the shuttle's engines powered up, Skarn flew into the void of space, leaving the wreckage of the station behind. Eli stood on the rooftop alone. The wind blew his hair. Smoke rose from buildings nearby. People still screamed below, trying to escape. But Eli didn't move. He just stared at the sky, calm like he knew something no one else did. Far above him, inside the giant alien warship, General Varkle stared at the empty screen. "Where are the scout team's signals?" he demanded. "Gone," the officer replied. "No trace. It's like they never existed." The ship's scanners were confused. The system tried to explain. Unknown force. Power level too high to measure. It came from the human boy's location. Varkle's face twisted with anger. A child did this. He slammed his clawed hand against the metal wall. "Bring him to me. Now." More alien squads were sent. Stronger ones. War-trained. But something deep inside Varkle's chest whispered again. This boy was not normal. Back on Earth, Eli sat down on the edge of the rooftop. He looked at the glowing blue stone in his hand. It was warm now. Like it was awake. He closed his eyes, and in his mind, a voice spoke. Not loud, not scary, just calm. "It's time." Eli opened his eyes. His heart beat faster, but not from fear. He remembered something. A story his mother once told him before she vanished. She wasn't from Earth, and neither was he. He was born here, yes, but his blood, his power, came from somewhere far, far older. From the first protectors, the ones who once guarded galaxies before time had names. His mother called it the spark of origin, and now it was waking up inside him. Far above, the warship's new squad landed, 10 alien warriors in heavy armor. They moved fast, weapons glowing, aiming at the rooftop. But Eli was already waiting. As they climbed the stairs, something strange happened. The lights in their helmets began to flicker. The walls around them grew colder. Their suits picked up energy spikes, but not from a bomb, not from machines. From Eli. They reached the rooftop. They raised their weapons. "Target located," one alien shouted. Eli stood, still holding the glowing stone. One of the aliens fired. The energy blast shot through the air, but stopped. Frozen. Mid-air, the energy beam hung like a ball of light, unmoving. Then, slowly, it reversed, shooting back toward the alien who fired it. It hit him directly, but there was no fire, no blood. The alien simply vanished, like dust in the wind. The others screamed. They fired together, but none of the blasts reached Eli. The air around him shimmered like water. Every blast bent away, like the boy was inside a shield the universe itself obeyed. One alien rushed him with a blade. Eli didn't even raise his hand. The stone glowed brighter, and the alien's blade turned to mist. The alien screamed as his armor cracked. His body dropped to its knees, then faded into nothing. The rest tried to run. They didn't get far. Eli closed his eyes, and the rooftop pulsed with light. A soft hum filled the sky. The aliens were lifted into the air, floating, spinning. Their screams were silent. And then, gone. Back in the alien warship, alarm screamed. Squad 3, lost. General Varkle stood frozen. The officer said, "Sir, he's not just a child. He's something else. Something ancient." Varkle growled, "No one is above me. No creature has that kind of power." But his eyes betrayed doubt. He had destroyed planets. He had killed kings. But this boy, he couldn't even touch him. Varkle stared at Earth on the screen. He must be taken. I will deal with him myself. The warship's engines roared louder. Its underbelly opened. A beam began to charge. Not to talk. Not to threaten. To destroy the city. To end the boy. Back on Earth, Eli looked up. The beam gathered power. The clouds began to spin above it. But Eli didn't panic. He touched the stone to his chest. The light spread across his body. Slow, glowing lines under his skin. His eyes turned blue, shining like stars. And the ground below his feet rose, floating. He was no longer standing on the building. He was in the air, floating up, rising toward the ship, toward the general who thought he ruled the stars. The world watched from screens, phones, satellites. Even the sky held its breath. Because for the first time in history, a child from Earth was going to war with the stars. General Varkle lay on the broken piece of ship debris, his breath heavy. His black armor, once shining with pride, now cracked. His blade, gone. And the boy who floated before him didn't look tired at all. Eli's body still glowed with soft blue light. His eyes were calm, but sharp like thunder ready to strike again. You should finish me, Varkle growled, coughing. That's what warriors do. But Eli didn't move closer. I'm not here to kill you, he said. I'm here to wake you up. Varkle laughed, bitter and weak. I've conquered 37 worlds. I watched empires burn. You think your words will change me? Eli's voice stayed soft. I don't care about changing you. I care about stopping what's coming. Varkle froze. What do you mean? But Eli didn't answer. His eyes turned to the stars above. Something was moving out there. Something far, far bigger than Varkle's warship. Down on Earth, the people who watched from rooftops and screens saw Eli floating alone. Many were still scared. Some began to pray. Others whispered his name. But in a quiet corner of the planet, deep in a desert ruin, something else awakened. Buried under stone and time, an ancient door trembled. It opened slowly. Inside, a soft blue light flickered. And a voice spoke. Not loud. Not human. It said, "The last spark has returned. The circle is not broken." Back in the sky, the warship trembled. Officers shouted. Lights flickered. Warning sounds screamed across the control room. Something is pulling us. One officer yelled. Gravitational waves. No, it's not gravity. It's memory. Suddenly, the stars around the ship began to bend, like space itself was being stretched. Then, without warning, a shape appeared. Dark, massive, silent. Not a ship, not a creature, a memory made real. It floated behind Eli, a giant ring of light and shadow, filled with unknown symbols and golden sparks. It moved without engines. It breathed without sound. The officers panicked. Varkle's mouth fell open. What? What is that? Eli looked at the ring. That, he whispered, is home. He didn't mean Earth. He meant the origin. The place where his power was born. A place lost to time. A place where the first ones once stood. Varkle stood slowly. You summoned it. Eli nodded. I didn't summon it. It heard me. The ring opened like an eye. From within, figures began to step out, made of light and smoke. Tall, silent, ancient. Not alive, but not dead. Guardians. Whispers filled the air. Even Varkle heard them. They didn't speak any known language, but he understood. They said, You have broken the balance. You have stolen peace. Now we remember. Varkle dropped to his knees again. He wasn't the ruler here anymore. Not even close. The figures floated toward Eli. One touched his shoulder. The blue light on his skin turned brighter. His body began to lift higher. He looked down at the warship. "This isn't just about Earth anymore," he said. "There's something deeper coming, and I have to be ready." One of the ancient figures looked at Varkle. It didn't move, but Varkle felt its thoughts. "You tried to burn a child of the spark. You failed. You are unworthy." The ship groaned again. The engines died. The officers screamed, "Sir, we're losing control. The ship is falling." But Eli raised a hand. The ship stopped falling, held in place by willpower alone. He looked at Varkle one last time. "You don't need to fear me," he said, "but you should fear what's coming next." The ring behind him began to close. The ancient beings returned to the shadows. Eli turned his face to Earth. He whispered something no one could hear and vanished in a flash of blue light. Gone. Just like that. The sky grew still. The warship was left powerless, floating above Earth, full of silence and shame. Down below, people looked up in awe. Some cried. Some cheered. Others just stood still, realizing what they had seen. A child from Earth, carrying power from the stars, had defeated an alien army. But the story wasn't over. Somewhere, beyond the edge of known space, something else had awakened. And it had felt Eli's power, and it was coming. The clouds tore open like paper. Eli rose higher and higher into the sky. His body glowed with soft blue light. The wind screamed around him, but he didn't feel cold. He didn't feel fear. He felt something else. Memory. Not his own, but memories of others. Heroes. Guardians. Beings from long ago who once protected galaxies before stars were born. Their power now flowed through him. It had been sleeping for years, waiting. Above him, the massive alien warship floated like a city of steel. Its bottom opened, revealing a giant energy cannon. The beam hummed, charging with red lightning. Inside the ship, General Varkle stood at the command center. His claws were tight. His eyes glowed with rage. "Target the boy," he growled. "Fire when ready." "But sir," the officer warned, "if we miss the city." "Let it burn," Varkle shouted. "This planet needs a lesson." The charging beam began to shake the clouds. Eli looked up. His eyes locked onto the ship. He stretched out both hands. The blue stone in his chest pulsed once. Boom. The beam fired. A red line of energy exploded down from the ship, hot and deadly. It was big enough to wipe out the city in one breath. People watching screamed. Cameras shook. Birds vanished. But Eli didn't move. He didn't run. He simply lifted one hand. And the sky answered. A circle of light appeared above him, bright, glowing, ancient. The red beam slammed into it and stopped. It didn't explode. It didn't pass through. It just froze in midair, stuck like an insect in glass. The circle of light spun slowly. The beam bent, twisted, and snapped. The energy broke apart into 1,000 glowing pieces, like red fireflies. They floated around Eli and then disappeared. Down on Earth, people gasped. On the warship, silence. Varkle stared. "That's impossible," he whispered. Eli slowly rose until he was level with the warship. He floated just outside, his small body glowing like a sun. The ship's guns turned toward him. Thousands of cannons, every weapon ready. Varkle pointed. Fire. Missiles launched. Energy blasts screamed through space. It was like a wall of death racing toward one small boy. And still, Eli did not run. He took a deep breath, then opened both hands, and spoke one word, a word not from Earth, a word not known by any living alien, a word from the first language, the voice of creation itself. The sound shook the air. Time itself seemed to slow. The missiles stopped, hung in space. The energy blasts unraveled into threads of light. And then, like snowflakes in sunlight, they melted. Gone. The ship's weapons were silent. Inside, Varkel's officers panicked. He's breaking the laws of physics. He's rewriting space. He's not human. But Varkel only stared. Not with fear, but with something worse. Doubt. He growled, "Open the gates. I'll face him myself." Deep inside the warship, massive doors opened. Varkel stepped into the launch chamber, armor locked onto his body, black steel, covered in red runes. A giant blade was placed in his hands, carved from a dead star. He stepped into a pod. It launched. A black streak of metal shot from the ship toward the floating boy. In seconds, Varkel landed on a floating piece of ship debris, standing across from Eli. The boy and the general stared at each other. "I don't know what you are," Varkel said, "but I will end you." Eli's voice was calm. "You can try." Varkel leaped forward, blade swinging. He moved fast, faster than sound. But Eli didn't move. He raised a finger, and Varkel's blade stopped inches from his face. The metal trembled, then shattered. Varkel jumped back, shocked. Eli floated toward him, eyes glowing blue. "You call yourself powerful," Eli said, "but you don't understand what power is." Varkel roared and punched forward, but Eli vanished. In a blink, he was behind the general. He touched Varkel's back. A small pulse of blue light rippled out, and Varkel fell, not hurt, not dead, just on his knees. His body refused to move. He looked up, confused. "What are you?" Eli looked at the stars above, then down at the earth below. "I'm just a boy," he said quietly, "but I remember who I was meant to be." And for the first time in 1,000 years, General Varkel felt defeat. The sky over New York City turned dark, but it wasn't because of clouds. It was something else, something huge. A strange sound filled the air, deep, loud, like the growl of a monster too big to see. People stopped in the streets. They looked up. Some pointed. Some ran. A few just stood still, frozen. High above the city, a massive ship broke through the clouds, black and silver, bigger than a mountain. It didn't fly like planes. It floated, smooth and slow, like it owned the sky. Phones came out. Cameras recorded. News channels cut their programs. The world had just changed. Inside the alien ship, the floor was cold and metal. Red lights blinked across the control panels. Hundreds of alien soldiers stood at attention. All were tall, strong, and wore armor that shimmered like glass. At the center, sitting on a throne of steel, was General Varkel. His skin was silver and hard, like stone. His eyes burned red. Sharp spikes rose from his back like blades. He watched Earth through a giant screen. On it, humans ran, screamed, and hid. Varkel laughed. "A soft world," he said, "full of weak things. They scream before we even speak." An officer stepped forward. "Should we respond to their calls, General? They try to speak." Varkel waved his hand. "Ignore them. I didn't come to talk. I came to conquer." He stood up, towering above everyone. "This will be the 20th planet I burn. The 20th flag added to my war wall." The alien soldiers cheered. On Earth, the government scrambled. Fighter jets were launched. Missiles were armed. Scientists begged for time. Leaders sent messages to the ship. "Who are you? What do you want? Let's talk." No answer came. But in the middle of all the panic, in the middle of a city losing its mind, one boy stood still. He was only 13. His name was Eli Carter. He stood on the rooftop of a broken building. Dust blew around him. Sirens screamed below. The alien ship hovered above like death itself. But Eli didn't run. He didn't hide. He just looked up at the ship, calm, quiet, and curious. On the ship, General Varkel noticed him. He zoomed in with the screen. "Strange," he said. "The city panics, but this one stares." "Shall we remove him, sir?" the officer asked. Varkle shook his head. "No, let him watch. Let him see what power looks like." But something in Varkle's chest felt odd. Not fear, never fear, but a whisper he didn't like. On the rooftop, Eli slowly reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small object. It looked like a rock, but it glowed blue, soft, gentle. He held it in his hand like a memory, like something old. The air around him changed. It felt thicker, electric. Varkle's ship sensors began to glitch. "What's happening?" barked the officer. "Unknown energy detected. It's coming from that boy." "What energy?" "From a child. Something ancient, something we don't understand." Varkle leaned closer to the screen. That object in his hand, what is it? The ship's AI scanned it, but every scan failed. "No match in the Galactic database," the system said. "Possibly older than recorded time." Varkle's red eyes narrowed. "Send a scout team. I want that object." Moments later, a small alien scout ship flew down to Earth. Fast, silent, it landed near the building. 3 armored aliens stepped out. They walked toward the rooftop. On the screen, Varkle watched. The aliens reached the stairs. They climbed. Eli still stood there, not moving. The aliens aimed their weapons. And then, nothing. In one blink, all 3 aliens vanished. No sound, no flash, just gone. Their weapons clattered to the ground. Their armor pieces dropped a moment later, burnt and twisted. Varkle jumped to his feet. "What happened?" "No life signs," said the officer, panicking. "The scouts, they're gone, General." Eli looked directly at the alien ship and smiled. That was the moment General Varkle felt it. For the first time in his long life, something felt wrong. Not with Earth, not with humans, but with him. He sat down slowly and watched the boy who didn't run. The boy who stared back at a god of war without blinking. "You did," the ancient said, nodding. "But the battle is not over. There is always more to protect. The spark is the light that guides through the darkness." Eli looked out into the vastness of space, where the stars had returned, but the shadow of the Devourer's presence still lingered, faint but real. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. "Then I'll keep fighting," Eli said, his voice steady now. "I'll keep the light burning." The ancients nodded. Their light surrounded him, strengthening him. And then, as quickly as they appeared, they were gone. Eli was alone once again, floating in the silence of space. But this time, the silence was different. This time, it wasn't empty. This time, it was full of hope. The Earth was quiet. For the first time in what felt like forever, there were no alarms, no explosions, no sounds of battle. The stars above gleamed softly in the night sky, and the wind blew gently over the quiet fields where Eli stood. He was back. The blue light that had once surrounded him had faded, leaving only the memory of its glow. He was no longer the young hero who had fought a battle beyond imagination. Now he was just Eli, a boy, standing on the Earth he had sworn to protect. But that didn't mean the fight was over. His body still felt the strain of his battle with the Devourer. Every step was heavier than the last. His strength had been used up, his energy almost gone. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep going. But the world was safe. For now. Eli looked up at the sky, watching the stars twinkle in the vastness above. The battle had been won, but the universe was still full of dangers. He had been the last spark, the one who had stopped the darkness. But the darkness would always come back. There would always be something new to fight. Eli. He turned around. Professor Reynolds stood there, his face lined with worry, but also relief. He had been there when everything had started, and now he was here to see it through to the end. Or, at least, the end of this part. "You're back," Reynolds said, his voice soft. We thought we'd lost you. I almost didn't come back, Eli said quietly. But I couldn't leave Earth. Not yet. Reynolds nodded. You did it, Eli. You stopped the Devourer. You saved us all. Eli shook his head. I didn't do it alone. The ancients, they gave me the power to fight. Without them, I would have failed. You're being modest, Reynolds said with a small smile. No one else could have done what you did. The world owes you everything. Eli looked at the ground, his hands clenched into fists. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Even though he had saved it, he had done what needed to be done. But now, what was next? I don't feel like a hero, Eli admitted. I feel empty, like there's nothing left for me to do. You've given everything you have, Reynolds said. And now, you have time. Time to heal. Time to live. Eli looked up at the sky again. I don't know what's next. The universe is still out there. There's always something new to fight. Something new to protect. Reynolds placed a hand on his shoulder. You've earned the right to rest, Eli. You've earned the right to live like any other person. Eli smiled faintly. Maybe. But I can't just forget about what happened. I can't pretend that everything is normal. You don't have to, Reynolds said gently. But you can live your life. You don't have to do it alone. There are people here. People who will stand with you, no matter what comes next. For the first time in a long while, Eli felt a small spark of peace. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He had always carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. But maybe, just maybe, it was okay to share that weight. Maybe it was okay to let others help. A soft breeze blew across the field, and Eli felt it, home. The world around him was calm again, but it was also alive. The earth was safe. For now. And that was enough. Reynolds turned to leave. Come on. Let's get you inside. You need rest. We all do. Eli followed him, his footsteps lighter than they had been. The world hadn't ended. He hadn't failed. He had won. But there would be more battles to come. Eli didn't know what the future would bring, but one thing was clear. He wasn't alone anymore. The people he had fought to protect, the ones who had believed in him, were still here. And that gave him hope. As they walked back to the town, the stars above twinkled brighter, as if they, too, were celebrating. The last spark had returned home. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. Eli looked up at the sky one last time, a quiet promise forming in his heart. No matter what happened, no matter what came next, he would always be ready. The spark within him would never die. And when the darkness came again, he would be there to fight.